Welcome to part 2 of Gilded's overview of Etherscan and crypto accounting. Today we're going to cover viewing a transaction on Etherscan. Etherscan does track the details of all transactions that occur within the network, and all transactions are marked by a transaction ID or a transaction hash. This is a unique 66-character identifier that defines a specific transaction. You can search for a transaction in two ways. You can look at a wallet's history, or you can search by the transaction hash or ID. We already have our ID pasted into the search bar, and let's go ahead and search. Before we look at the actual details of the transaction, turn your attention to the top left portion of the page, and here you'll see the current spot price of ETH. This is a live reflection of the price. You'll also see the percentage change of ETH in the last 24 hours. Next to that is the current gas fee and its breakdown. This is made up of the base fee, which is determined by the network itself. This is not set by the end users looking to transact or by miners seeking to validate transactions. This cost is subsequently burned, which gives a deflationary element to ETH. There's also the priority fee. This is referred to as the miner tip. It's an additional fee paid directly to the miners to incentivize them to process your transaction within a block. This can fluctuate depending on network congestion, but usually will be around close to 2 Gwei. Below this, we have the overview of the transaction itself, beginning with the transaction ID. And below that, we have the status. This can be reflected in a number of ways: success, failed, pending, dropped, or replaced. Success means that a transaction was executed on the blockchain. Pending means that transactions have not confirmed on the blockchain yet and still need more time for processing. The time it takes for a transaction to execute and confirm can vary and is dependent on network congestion. Failed or dropped transactions can happen due to varying errors, including but not limited to failed validation, cancellation by the sender, not enough ETH for gas fees, the submitted gas price was too low, or some other type of error. Next, we have the block. Specifically, this is the precise number of the block in which the transaction was included. It ultimately marks when a transaction happened, like a blockchain time, and it includes the total number of block confirmations for a given transaction. Below that is the timestamp. This is when a transaction happened in a more human-friendly time frame. It's specifically measured in UTC, Universal Time Coordinated, and it includes the time length of confirmation. We also have from. This is the originating address of the transaction, and it sees the transaction as outgoing. Below that is to. This is the recipient of the transaction, and it sees the transaction as incoming. If the recipient is a standard wallet address, it will be listed as to. If it is a smart contract interaction, it will reflect as such and be listed as interacted with, as well as prefacing the address with the word contract. More on smart contract interactions on future Gilded tutorials. Be sure to check those out. Next is the value. This is the actual value being transacted. It's listed in both Ether and a fiat-based currency, US dollars. The spot price is, by default, listed as the current value at the time of viewing. It is not historically accurate. It lists the current fiat price for the listed amount of Ether. Click the price to see the historical spot value for the day of the transaction. Below that is the transaction fee, also known as the gas fees. This is the fee charged to execute a transaction on a blockchain. Just like the value, the listed fiat price reflects the current value. Click on the price to see the spot price for the day of the transaction. Next is the gas price. This is the cost per unit of gas for the transaction. Notice that it's listed in both Ether and Gwei. Gwei is the denomination of measurement for ETH. Exactly 1 billion units of Gwei make up one whole ETH. And because ETH is often traded not as an exact whole unit, Gwei is a very helpful way to measure the exact value of any given transaction. Next is the Ether price. This is the price of Ether on the day of the transaction. We also have the private note, and as mentioned in previous videos, this gives the ability for someone with an Etherscan account to assign notes to a specific transaction for record keeping or tracking or accounting purposes. Stay tuned for future tutorials on creating and using accounts on Etherscan from Gilded. The next tab that we'll check out is the State tab. In the State tab, you can view the before and after Ether balances for each of the addresses involved in a transaction. It will include the difference between the before and after balances as well, which is a very helpful tool for accounting purposes. This concludes our tutorial on viewing a transaction in Etherscan. Stay tuned for more helpful videos from Gilded on Etherscan and crypto accounting.